Hey everybody, welcome back to Absolutely. I'm Dylan, that's Hassan, that's Dan, and we are here to finish Star Watch with Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars episode. I don't think I said Star Wars at all in my intro. I said Star Watch, but not Star Wars. Anyway, we're talking about Revenge of the Sith, which is the last of the prequels, came out in 2005, stars all the people in the wars. So yeah. Hassan, you have never seen Revenge of the Sith before.
Stars all the people in the wars.
In the wars. What did you think of this movie?
Easily the best prequel. Easily the best thing you guys have forced me to watch during this thing. It's the only one that feels like a film instead of just a very poorly paced reel of people learning how to act. It was fun. Hayden Christensen, he's hot in this one, and I'm going to say it. Look at that man's hair. It looks incredible.
Good looking hair. You know, in my head it was a lot bigger. He had way more hair in my head than he does on screen. Maybe that's just because I'm used to the Clone Wars. He has a lot bigger hair in the Clone Wars, I think.
That's true.
But yeah, I loved it. I think the action was more interesting. I do think there's a level of... I think this is the only movie where Jedi's getting ambushed and getting the shit beaten out of them I'm okay with, because it felt like Order 66 was so out of left field that it was okay for them, versus like Attack of the Clones, where I just watched an army of Jedi just get mulled down by stupid droids when I've seen one Jedi destroy an army of droids in several other mediums. So this one was the only one that made sense. I was a fan. I was like, interested. I think I'd seen this movie as a kid, like a really, really long time ago, because I had like a vague memory of a lot of things. And I'd definitely seen the fight on Mustafar before. So it was fun to watch it all in context.
This movie is extremely quotable, and it has a lot of iconic scenes, for better or for worse. But this movie is basically a walking meme at this point. Like every line is something somewhere.
Do it.
Dan, what'd you think of Revenge of the Sith on a rewatch?
I really enjoyed it, because especially on the previous watches I've had, I was just enjoying the watch. But I feel like in this one, I was watching it from much more of an analytical point of view as well. Like kind of basically thinking of things that I wanted to say that I knew I would forget the second that the review started. Which I definitely have. I knew there were things, and I was like, I forgot all my notes.
Look at all these.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Okay.
You are Star Wars fans through and through. Look at you, Dylan.
See, this is my trick.
You're not a part of their cult.
This is my trick, Dylan. I think of things, and I know that you're going to bring them up, and it'll trigger the memory for me.
Oh, okay.
Dan's just looking to get triggered. That's all.
Yeah, I get triggered all the time. That's my thing.
Fair enough.
Overall, though, I really enjoyed this one. I really like there's a lot of real progression in the characters, and I also feel... Now that I've seen the Clone Wars animated film, as well as a good number of episodes of the Clone Wars animated series, there were a couple of scenes that had a lot more weight behind them. I know that it wasn't the case at the time, but you can really tell that you can tell that the writers of the animated series chose specific characters to use in these things, because there was one of the, just to put as an example, there's one guy who has like a gas mask built into his face, and he's clearly an alien of sorts. That's Kit
Fisto. No, it isn't. That's Plo Koon.
I don't know the names anyway. But like there's an episode in the Clone Wars where like they're trapped in space because they're all pilots together, and he's basically like, no, I treat you all as this, like, as individual people, like I respect you. So it's a lot like it had a lot more meaning when Order 66 goes on, because you're like, oh my God, like there's so much more than just, it's a random Jedi getting turned on. And I actually really like that.
That's a huge part of the Clone Wars, is kind of doing, and that's really what Star Wars' expanded universe was all about, is all of these like for better or for worse, like you put a character in one frame of a scene, and suddenly they have wiki pages, multiple. Right. Sometimes it's egregious. I have a video that I've been working on for a long time that is an example of that I need to finish at some point, but I procrastinate. But yeah, like the Jedi in here, especially like seeing all of them die, like Ayla Secura, who's the Twi'lek, the blue lady, who's like, she's got like 2 lightsabers. She's really cool, but she has nothing in these 2 movies. But then the Clone Wars, like, she's a character, and they like invent characters who you don't see, and like, you know, they all get, you got Ki-Adi-Mundi, who's the big head guy, the cone head. You got Kit Fisto, like I mentioned earlier, who's like the green tentacle man. They're all cool. They have all got like lore to them that this movie has no idea about. But
I was gonna ask a question actually about that. When Anakin goes to Mustafar to go kill somebody, right?
Yeah.
Viceroy something.
Gundir.
Who is he? What is
He's from the
relevance?
first movie. Remember the Trade Federation, and they were doing the politics that you weren't a fan of? That was the Viceroy trying to take over of
the Jedi.
like the Trade Federation and stuff.
Gotcha.
Basically,
Okay.
he's the instigator of a lot of the war that you see in the movie.
Okay.
Anakin didn't.
Very cool.
He was sent there by Sidious to kill all of the Separatist leaders, so that in the eyes of the public, the Republic, now the Empire, has brought peace to the world by killing the Separatists, which was always Palpatine's plan.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. That was just something I was like, I don't know if I missed something huge, but that does affect it because I was like, you just killing spree, dude. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
I see
Well,
you,
yeah.
bro.
He killed not just the men, but the women and children.
Oh
too.
my gosh. Okay, let's do it before we start doing this review Benjamin Button style. Let's maybe start at the start, because otherwise
Act one.
I have more
Space.
that I want to say around what Hassan said, but then
Sure.
I know that it's gonna go in very weird directions.
So this movie actually it's interesting because normally movies have a 3-act structure, right? That's broken sometimes. I didn't think Star Wars would be the place to break it, but this movie has 4 acts, which is interesting to me. I don't think that this movie is great, just for my like general opinions on it. I think it's fine. It's definitely the most watchable out of these 3. There's a lot of fun and you know, it's more cohesive and consistent as a movie. It doesn't look as bad as Attack of the Clones. It's not as boring as The Phantom Menace. Like it's got a lot going for it.
The Phantom Menace is not boring, Dylan. You don't understand
no.
Star Wars. Sorry, I could hear the comment in my mind continue. I'm so sorry, guys.
But yeah, so starting out Act 1, they're in space. There's a Dan, you were mentioning stuff like being retroactively made in Clone Wars. When he says this is where the fun begins, when Anakin says that, Ahsoka says that in the Clone Wars animated movie. So he like learned it from her. It's like poetry, it rhymes. That's a thing George Lucas said a lot about the prequels. Yeah, that act is a lot of fun. I remember this is the movie that I played the most as a video game. There was a Revenge of the Sith tie-in video game.
I played that game. I feel like I've been watching scenes of this movie thinking that I watched the movie as a kid. I think I might have like watched the game. I think I watched the ending of the movie and then the beginning of the game because I was like, I remember seeing this from a whole different POV. Like the Count Dooku thing happens and the camera's up here and they're like down there. Right. It's shitty PlayStation 2 game.
I love that game. It's got like a fighting mode. It's a great time. I should play that again. Anyway, yeah, that I like that first act is a lot of fun. I think it's a great dynamic way to open the movie. I think it's a little bit absurd, but this whole movie is. I think this movie delves into it, like it turns into a cartoon as it keeps going. So it starts off pretty strong, but then it just slowly dives into nonsense territory.
Yeah, one thing that I liked about the Dooku moment, and this is kind of a general of the whole film, is that that's kind of the first scene where you start seeing Darth Sidious Palpatine's plan truly transforming from everything that he had set up to where it's supposed to be now, because like you have Dooku, who is his apprentice, and you can tell everything that Dooku's been doing has been Sidious's plan, and you can see that fear in his eyes when he says, "Kill him," and you see that moment in Dooku of like, "Wait, what? Like that's not part of the plan. I'm supposed to be your apprentice. Why are you?" Like, why did you just basically execute me? And like, you can kind of see that moment of true betrayal of like, wait, this isn't
Come on,
part of
man.
the plan. Like, this isn't part of what we discussed, basically. And I liked that because, and this was actually why I was also, that, you know, I'm glad Hassan brought up the last scene, because you could tell in that same scene that they clearly were told something different by by Sidious of, when we, like, you're going to start this war, at the end of it, your trade federation's going to be fine. Like, we're going to, like, allow you to do this. But then when Anakin, aka Vader, shows up and kills them, like, once again, you see that moment of, this isn't what I was promised. Like, what's going on here? And so I actually really liked that moment with Dooku, because it really was and this was something that I noticed because it was a watch through for like a review and I'm watching it more analytically, that I saw that true feeling or that true emotion in his eyes for it. And I just thought that was very interesting, because
that is something that's really, I feel like, well done in theory about these three movies. Is if you just sit down, I bet the books of these movies is better. Because if you like think about Palpatine's plan and the arc that he goes on to basically set up a universe, like politics in a universe, that everything funnels into eventually this moment where he tells Anakin Skywalker to kill someone out of cold blood, basically, and literally an unarmed man. And that's kind of cool, right? Like he puts all of these dominoes in effect and then finally flicks them, and everything comes unraveling until the moment where he puts everything out on the line and says, hey, I'm a Sith Lord, join me. And he has like the balls to be like, yeah, I'm going to tell you everything and you're going to join me despite this going against everything that you know. Which is cool in theory. I don't think it's executed very well.
I was going to say, I have a lot of the dialogue during that scene where Anakin turns is absurd. Like,
it's ridiculous.
I think if you're going to do it right, if you're going to do it correctly, Anakin cuts off Windu's arm, Windu dies, and then there's like a level of calm that comes to him, rather than this moment where he sits down and he's like, what have I done? And then immediately stands up and he's like, now I'll kill people. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
He's not a person. He's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Well, on that, like, the Dooku part is actually very pivotal for that moment as well, because throughout this entire thing, he has been doing things from a more evil aspect or more dark side aspect without truly even knowing about it, because he got I thought of the fact that, like, he cuts off Dooku's head, right? None of the Jedi ever say anything, and he says to himself, that's not the Jedi way.
Right.
And none of the Jedi ever really say anything about it. Like, they're like, no, you did a good job. You defeated Dooku. That's one of those things. But you can see these seeds of doubt and these seeds of kind of making him feel more okay about these decisions and like the difference, because the fact that he is aware that he killed a literal unarmed man, like he knows that, but he's been praised for killing Dooku because everyone else knows him as a true villain. And like, there are moments like that where you go through and you see Anakin's kind of being indoctrinated into, these things are okay if it's for the right reason. It's okay to kill an unarmed man if you're under the impression that they are against your beliefs, against what you believe to be good and true. Like, he's getting more in that aspect of, I mean, if it gets the end result, like the ends justify the means kind of situation. And I feel like that kind of solidifies in the scene of Mace Windu and I mean, almost a parallel of the Dooku scene of cutting off his arms, disarming him, and then a disarmed man gets killed.
So I think you're talking about, like, I think they plant that seed really, really well. But what I would have rather had happen in that moment is that Anakin is purely operating off of this is how I can save Padme and nothing
Right.
else. Like he's not,
Yes.
he doesn't want to do what, like it almost seems like he's willing, but I'd rather him seem completely unwilling to do it. And then it hurts him to have to kill the younglings. It hurts him to have to go do all the stuff that he's doing. And then by the time we get on Mustafar, that's when the eyes turn red and it's like, he's warped. Now the dark side is really, really, but like that scene's delivery doesn't track that, but I think that's what they were intending to do. I wanted his motivation to purely be Padme, nothing else, because that's the only thing that really matters to him in these movies. He's a creepy kid looking after, he's a creepy teenager looking after, and then he's a hot adult being with a great woman. You know what I mean? Like the transition's fantastic. He's still a freak. Oh my god, he's terrifying.
I think actually what you're saying, I think could be attributed to poor acting, to be honest, because I actually got that vibe. Like I got direction and like all of that, because I did get that vibe. Like the ends of what I was kind of referring to, of like the ends justify the means, was saving Padme was okay for all of this, because the only time you really see what you're saying, which was kind of odd, was the real, like the true change at the end, when, like you said, he's on Mustafar, his eyes are turning red, and for some reason they have a tear falling down his face after he's killed all of the separatists. And I thought it was bizarre, because it's kind of going along with what you're saying of like the feeling regret. But feeling like it's okay for these reasons.
Right.
But for some reason they showed it mostly there with just a single tear. And all the other times was him going like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but let's do it again. Like
that's the thing that I really don't like about this movie and kind of the whole arc of the trilogy here, is that they try to have, George Lucas tried to write this really nuanced take that, and people have like said this in the comments a lot when we've especially in Phantom Menace, when we talked about how the Jedi are kind of boring and weird and dogmatic, and people were like, well, that was the point. Like the Republic is the villain in this. And it's like, yeah, that's interesting, right? But then you get to this movie and the message sort of seems to be that that turning to the dark side is the correct choice, because the Jedi have lost their way and they're like dogmatic and weird and creepy, and like because they all say that, hey, if you have attachment, you will become a bad person. And it's like, okay, right. That's their whole order. And it's just this weird message of you have to lose all attachment and do nothing and become a monk. Otherwise, you're going to become a murdering psychopath who kills children.
I mean, otherwise you gotta unlock your avatar state somehow by letting go of all earthly possessions.
All earthly possessions, of course. But
there's just a lot of that. Those scenes drove me insane.
Yeah,
like,
it's this weird like pigeonhole thing with Anakin, where it's sort of like he turns not because he's being manipulated. He turns because he did like things that a normal human would do. And it's like that's the part of the message that I don't like agree with or understand. And it's like, okay, if the Republic and the Jedi are supposed to be the bad guys in these movies, and that's the whole big like nuanced point, because that's the whole thing about Star Wars, is like the Empire, the big government is bad. That's what Star Wars has been about since the 70s. Even if they're portrayed as good, they're still bad. That's the whole point. And if that is the case, then Anakin shouldn't be turning to the dark side because he loves Padme. He should be turning to the dark side because Palpatine like did something specifically to him. And the only thing that I can see that Palpatine did specifically was maybe making him a slave on Tatooine. Maybe he had a hand in that, and that started his journey into being kind of a frustrated against the system little boy. But like everything after that, like I find it very hard to believe that Palpatine orchestrated him falling in love with someone and then impregnating that someone, marrying them. Like it just seems very far-fetched, and it just reads as very strange. I don't know.
Yeah, I really, really feel like if Anakin's motivation is, I gotta protect Padme, I have to, and like, showing the importance of why it's special to him to be a Jedi Master, we didn't do that. We really didn't sit down and make it clear as to why this is special. What is he losing by not being a Jedi Master? Because if that's not laid out, then his like frustration doesn't make sense. Like, he's the youngest person to be on the Jedi Council. Sounds pretty cool, my guy. Like, you're already doing big shit. Just chill out a little bit. You're going to end up having everything you want, but he won't calm down because it's so important to him. Maybe if they make it clear that only Jedi Masters could potentially have the power that is needed to heal somebody who's dying, like the thing that they do in the sequel trilogy, right? I say what you want about it, but they learn to heal people using the Force or whatever that is. Give life force. I don't remember the intricacies of it because they were silly movies, but they have that like you need to be a part of the Jedi Council to even learn this ability, right? That would have made sense. You need to be a Jedi Master to have this ability. Instead, it's, I have to be a master, Padme. I really want to be a master,
That's
Padme.
the other thing about like Anakin's character in these movies is they try to sow this narrative that Anakin is like, it's the classic thing, right? Is like this character who thinks that he's doing something for the right reasons is actually just doing it because it's a power grab and his hubris, blah blah blah. And they try to do that in these movies, but it really falls flat on its face because it's like you said, like they never really explain it. Like I think the reason, and George Lucas has said why Anakin wants to be a master is because he just wants that. Like it's something he wants, and he's so absorbed by wanting power that's what he wants.
The lust for power is what I wanted to actually tag on to, because that's kind of what I got. It wasn't so much the become a master. I thought it was, my interpretation of it was Anakin this entire time has shown he wants to be the strongest to, at first, protect his mother. Couldn't do that. Didn't have the strength and power to do it. And then moves on to wanting to protect Padme. And the becoming a Jedi Master, as what I interpreted it, was he has that lust for power. They are denying him. And Palpatine is basically like, I mean, if they're not, I'll give you the power. Like, I'm
Right.
not afraid to give you that power.
Right.
They're clearly afraid. They don't want you to have
it's the
this.
defining
and it's very,
of like what the power is. That's my issue, is that they don't define what a Jedi
Right,
Master
it's
has
not
over
nuanced.
anybody else. I can take on multiple Padawans. Like, I don't understand what any of them did, because
I think
Obi-Wan's only thing is he gets to be on the council, which Anakin is
Right.
on.
In his eyes, it's literally just, I want that title. I want to be seen as equal to these people that I look up to. And like, again, that's again my problem with it specifically, is that is a thing that Anakin's frustrated with, which eventually leads him to turn toward the dark side. But that's just a thing that happens. Like Palpatine, it's never shown that Palpatine has a hand in him not becoming a Jedi Master. Like if Palpatine wasn't in this movie in these movies, I feel like he still would have eventually turned into Darth Vader, which if you're going to make a redeemable character in Darth Vader, which is the point eventually, then I feel like you need to have him stray off the beaten path more because of a direct cause, instead of just, oh, this is who Anakin Skywalker is. He's a Darth
Right.
Vader, and he always will be. And it's a mixed thing. It's a mixed message that I don't jive with, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right.
It feels like a lot of cool ideas, but not a lot of actual execution. And it's just like George Lucas knew Anakin had to become Vader, so
Right.
he wanted to
You
create a
have to.
hero, and then he plants seeds of him being kind of a person. I have doubts and insecurities, therefore I think I might be evil. Like, no, dude, you're just some guy. You're a little creepy.
you're like-
mind you.
You're like actually like 23 at this point. Like, you don't
As a
have everything figured
23-year-old
out.
myself, dude.
Same.
Sometimes you tap into the dark side. Can't
Exactly.
stress how much I hate people at random every now and then. And I
Sometimes
don't
you
think
go
it makes me an
Vader
evil
mode.
person. Oh, if you don't go Vader mode like twice a week, dude, who are you around, man? I gotta hang out with you. My people suck. I gotta like rage at people for not taking out the trash on a timely fashion and stuff
Of
like
course.
You didn't take out the trash.
that. Like, I choke my roommate.
What are you doing?
Force choke them. Let's move a little more specifically into Acts 2 and 3. We've been talking generally. General Grievous, new character.
General Kenobi.
Hello there.
So his human ass eyes
Yeah, he's like a
So
weird.
terrifying.
Grievous is like one of the weirdest things to just throw in. It's like one of the coolest ideas that these movies had. Is just like here's like this like interesting environmental storytelling where it's just like this is the leader of the droid army, but he's like also kind of human. Like what the hell?
Am I the only one that got like Nebula vibes, where it's like maybe this
Yeah.
was an actual person
Yeah.
who continuously got like upgrades because of the fact that he does have human organs on very
There is, like,
small
lore.
bits of him?
I don't know how much of it is canon,
Like-
but I don't. I'm not going to begin to try to say that I know Grievous's lore. I really like Grievous. I think he's one of the few things in this movie that I have like zero issues with. I don't know why he has like a cough. It's just there's a lot in this movie that's just like
Because
why?
he's got his lungs exposed. Clearly, there's dust getting on
Why
it
is he
and
sick?
irritating.
He's a
Obviously.
robot.
It's
He
obviously
shouldn't be
that
sick.
even though he has so many robot parts lying around, he never thought, maybe I should build a better,
Yeah.
a non-pliable, rip-openable place to hide
Skin
my...
instead of just like this weird like bone structure.
Yeah. Why didn't they introduce him in like the second movie or the first one? They just tack him onto this one. Did they mention him in the first two movies? Like,
No.
It's either in the Clone Wars show or in the Clone Wars movie. I know Grievous and Obi-Wan have a meeting because when they run into each other on the ship, they're reacquainted, and this is Anakin's first time meeting
Yeah.
Grievous.
right.
And I don't remember if it's the show or the movie, but I know
it
that they do
happens
run
in the
into
show.
each other.
I know it happens in the show for sure. I've like seen clips of Obi-Wan and Grievous together, but I don't. I feel like we would remember him if he was in Attack of the Clones. We would have talked about it in that movie.
No, he's not in
review.
there at all. George
Yeah.
Lucas had a night. George Lucas woke up in a fever dream one night and said, "Oh, robot man with heart and eyes, of a human." And
His wife's
when he
like
wrote
screaming,
in.
"George, calm down!" Grievous.
no!
He's just like yelling, "It's Grievous!"
Grievous!
Calling the police. It's George. He's having Star Wars dreams again.
He's coming up with Star Wars characters again. Oh God, again.
But I love Grievous. I thought he looked so
Great.
cool. It's insane the way he's using his lightsabers to just like
So flashy.
do nothing. He does nothing with it. But also, once again, a Jedi master, just a powerful Jedi being a badass, taking him out, versus, in other movies within the same series where there are several Jedi and they can't beat the freaking Roger drones like even a little bit.
I will say,
not
Get over that.
How could I ever, Dan?
He
How
hates
could
it.
I ever?
Because
fair, I
someone
agree.
with fast reflexes, if they're getting shot multiple times, there's only so much you can dodge.
jump.
if there's so many of them that are that powerful, which we watched the first Clone
And
Wars
none
movie.
of those were actually, like, one thing to also mention on that, in the Clone Wars, not all of those are masters. A lot of them are Padawans who are garbage Jedi because they're not trained yet. Another thing to
Man,
keep in mind. They're
Don't give a
not
child a
everyone is
lightsaber.
Obi-Wan. No one is or not many people are Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda. I mean, there's a
Or
reason those are the
Anakin, or
only
Mace.
two that survive throughout the whole thing.
Fair enough.
It's not-
because they run like a bunch of little babies. I'm kidding. They obviously ran for reasonable reasons.
it's a
was hilarious.
tactical retreat, Hassan.
I think it's maybe my favorite scene is like when Yoda leaves, he like runs away. He goes, "Lost I have." I'm like, "You sure you don't want to try again?" Like I know this is like pretty upsetting, but people like assassinate senators like all the time. Like you could really just go back on that whole Yoda. Like don't do this. He goes, "In exile, go I must." Dude, no.
I think Yoda really just wanted to go to Dagobah. He was like, "I'm done."
He's like.
He's like, I was 2 days from retirement. I'm just going to take it
Exactly.
early.
He was about to
He,
get
like,
his
looks at the
pension. He was
senator.
like, "I'm out of here."
Yaddle send me must. What? Bring me my woman. You heard me. He just like goes off to go do his thing.
My woman.
I mean, like what? It just blew my. He goes, "In exile I must go. Lost we have, dude." No, the fight's not over. I'm like, please don't just quit now.
He's tired.
And then
he's
he
like 4 million years old.
I mean, he's also emotionally drained. He just lost all of his Wookiee friends, all of his Jedi friends.
That's true.
Like, literally everyone in his life has just been slaughtered. And I bet there's, like, it's that moment of, like, I can't do this anymore.
I'd love to see that though. I would
Yeah.
love to see Yoda be like, "Sad I am. Wookiee no more." Like, you know what I mean? Just like come up with something, like have him say something that leans into the fact that he's heartbroken, because heartbreak, obviously he kills Padme at the end of this movie. Like, that's something that is fair.
What a dumb.
No, I know. More fight, I cannot. Like, I just say anything that means that you're out for the count, Yoda. That would have been awesome. Also, going back to his Wookiee friends, and we'll go back to Grievous and keep going in a linear fashion. So Chewbacca's his friend, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just and then when we pick up in the original trilogy, there's air of like, are Jedi real? Like, they're a myth. Like, who knows about them? Whatever. That guy who fought with them. Is Chewbacca saying, you say nothing, bro?
Well, okay,
You say not anything?
I mean,
that is a complicated
all of them have died.
question.
Why would you go, hey, my friend who should be dead, and there is an order to execute all Jedi. He's still alive. Just so you're aware. So you should go find him and kill him because he's one of the most powerful Jedi that you probably do not want to leave alive to train some kid in a swamp.
Chewbacca spends so much time with Han and them. You just feel like you would have like said things, you know?
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
hey, like you're just like on the Millennium Falcon and you don't say anything interesting ever. But besides the point, that's just a little
honestly,
nitpick.
there probably is a scene somewhere that we never saw where Chewbacca and Han Solo are arguing about whether or not the Force is real. Which that'd be fun.
Which would be so funny because Chewbacca would probably like, he goes, "You're telling me there's a little green man who could fight armies," and that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
I could see that scene in my mind.
I wonder if he did say that, and it just this entire time, like Han's just like, no, you're just you're drunk, Chewbacca. Go home.
That'd be great. That'd be a great scene.
It's also like it's a whole thing. We kind of Dan and I kind of talked about this when we were reviewing the first couple episodes of Obi-Wan, where because you're halfway through it now, so like Obi-Wan is so disillusioned with the Jedi and the Force that even he's like stopping believing in it. So like that's obviously it came 10 years later, but that's a cool like way to say like if Obi-Wan Kenobi can stop believing in the Force, then probably on a larger scale, with the help of the Empire's heel, you can make the whole universe stop believing that the Jedi are a thing, or just even treating them as like a myth. Because I think there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, the Jedi are real, but we don't talk about it because I don't want to go to prison. Because if I mention the word Jedi, I'm getting my ass thrown in a space prison cell. So
Either that or like the fact of he could think Yoda got killed after he left their planet because they do. I'm sure the Empire's like, no, we killed all the Jedi.
Well, I think it was less
They
of
are
like
extinct.
I'm not expecting Chewbacca to go like have like a hero's mission to get Yoda back. I just think like mentioning it would have been nice. It's like, dude, I knew these guys once. They were kind of weird virgin monks,
didn't
but
know
like,
that at the time.
they could fight. Yeah, but no, that's obviously there's that.
I mean, the correct solution is to not put Chewbacca in this movie as like, oh, Chewbacca, because it raises more questions than it answers. So
why are all of the senators so willing and open to overthrow democracy when that was a lot of their thing? Are there like a lot of them? Was it
I
never
don't think
stated?
they know.
They don't know. Yeah, they
Yeah.
think it's we have to stop this war. If we spend the entire time debating how to do this, more people are going to die. So if we give one person the power to make these decisions, we'll end this war faster and then go back to the Senate. And then they're like, that's not, we should not have done that. Because that's how it happens in like actual governments.
I was gonna say like these are because the thing is, we got to remember, this is an interplanetary government. So every individual one of these planets, I'm sure they've had,
Not all of them.
you know,
Most of them. Not all of them.
Right.
The Hutts control a good portion
true.
of them.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because I was going to say, like, you're telling me none of you guys ever had a dictatorship come up and you're not like, hey, that guy was bad on our planet alone. Let's not make this guy in charge of everyone's planet, including ET's, by the way. Which I love that he's in there.
Yeah, they don't really talk about Palpatine's like rise to power or his past at all. We'd come to find out like over a decade later that there's many Palpatines and they're all old and crippled and they come from a planet far, far away. And that sucks. But
What the fuck did you just say to me?
We'll
There's
just
what?
ignore that. We'll just
The
ignore
Rise of
Did you
that.
say
Skywalker.
there's many Palpatines? Oh my God.
We're
Did you
not
already
talking
write
about
that out
that
of your
one.
brain?
We will spend
Somehow
too much
Palpatine
time on
returned.
that if we.
Dan, somehow
we're not on that movie.
Palpatine returned, Dan.
in
somehow.
Fortnite.
In Fortnite.
That's
When
canon.
he turns into,
So Grievous.
I guess in all honesty, I just don't like the actor. I just didn't like Palpatine as a whole, which is my own personal, like, not a hate, not
That's fair.
no hate to Star Wars fans who think Palpatine's
Right.
the greatest villain ever. I just thought, that's a really weird direction for him to do it. You gotta kill him instead of like, it's interesting. Someone brought up to me that the sequel trilogy lacks what both the prequel and the original trilogy do, which is iconic villains. Because say what you want about this, I hate Palpatine, but Grievous is iconic. Dooku is iconic. So many of these villains in these movies are Darth Maul, iconic. And then you think of the current sequel trilogy, it's like Kylo Ren-ish, Snoke. No, like there's really not as much of
Snoke
that.
could have been something. That's a fair point. That is one thing that I have always given the prequels. No matter, like, I don't like these movies, but at least they were trying something new. Like, pretty almost everything after this, because this point, 2005, was the point where it's like, okay, Star Wars is a franchise now. We are going to make everything Star Wars, and it got even worse over time. But ever since that point, like, it's just like, it's let's take a character who shows up in one scene and write an entire novel about them. Let's just compound on this and not create anything new. And that's why I say Star Wars is creatively bankrupt, as evidenced by the sequel trilogy, which is, here's this first movie. We're going to rehash a lot of what worked. We're going to remake A New Hope, basically. And it's like
in
kind
an
of fun.
awesome way, mind you.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's a good time. And then the next movie, they're like, because they had no roadmap, they were like, let's throw
shit in its mouth
everything
now.
out the window. It's like,
Let's just make it the worst.
it's like, look, nobody knows what anyone is doing ever at any point with Star Wars.
Lots of
I
cool
actually did
visuals.
see that second one. The
The Last Jedi.
eighth one. Yeah, the middle one of the
The Last
sequels.
Jedi. You didn't see it?
The Last Jedi. Yes, I did not see it. I missed it, and then everyone was like, it was garbage. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing I missed it then.
I remember walking out of the theater thinking, that wasn't that terrible. But then, like, the more I thought about it as, like, a fan of the original trilogy, it was just like, was that Luke being a bitch? Was that, like, why?
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Yeah.
The things I didn't like aren't the things that people decided to riot over and send death threats over. So
That movie is a prequel. In like every, like, it's a movie filled with interesting ideas that are not executed well at all. Like Luke being disillusioned with the Jedi Order and becoming a recluse. That's exactly what they're doing in Obi-Wan, and it's way better executed in that show.
yeah.
So it's
Which
it's a
it
whole
doesn't
thing.
make sense for the Luke that we are given at the end of those movies and the Luke that we've seen since. So, I love that there's a lot of parallels to like what they're doing now and what we've had in the prequels.
It's like poetry, it
with like
rhymes.
Revenge of the Sith stuff. It feels stop it. George Lucas is insane. I'm not gonna for one second be like,
Is a
that
crazy.
guy's
Have you
a
ever seen
genius.
that? You ever seen that
Because
photo?
power
of George
changes you.
Lucas? You ever seen the photo of George
He
Lucas?
turned
in, like,
to the
a-
dark side.
It's like a Midwest, mall cafeteria, and he's just like eating, like a meal, at like a mall. It's such a strange photo.
Why? Wait,
I
why
don't
is
know.
that what just came to mind?
Because he's an
for
old
you?
man who just like putters around with his billions of dollars, and he goes to the local mall. And it's like, I'm gonna get some
Okay.
Chick-fil-A. It's like, we
Before
George,
we keep going too much about mall eating,
let's talk about
mall cafeterias.
Mustafar.
Yes. Let's get to the final act. Would you
Yeah,
say?
there it is. That's the photo. Look at him.
I mean, are we sure that's actually him? Because I've seen tons of old men that look
That's
exactly
definitely
like
George
George
He has a
Lucas.
folded magazine, and this is within the last decade. Yeah, it's obviously him. Come on, no one else is reading not magazine, a newspaper. No one else.
I mean,
is
if
reading
they're
newspapers.
if they're that old, Hassan, let's be honest, that actually is a very good. Anyway, Mustafar.
Mustafar. The
Hold on, wait.
climactic fight
Before we
scene.
actually go to that, I want to know, because you said that this broke it up into 4 acts as opposed to 3, and I'm assuming Mustafar is the 4th act. Can you say which the 3 were?
so,
Because I
at least to
only
me,
saw 3 in there.
Acts
and
are
so
like,
I'm
stuff like
curious.
this, midpoints, act structures.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not the writer, so I don't know what was intended. I don't think George
Yeah.
Lucas knew what he was doing. But to me, Act 1 is space stuff, and then Act 2 is the Grievous stuff. Act 3...
Okay.
Act 3 and Act 4 like kind of meld together because they're both sort of
Okay.
like I say Act 4 starts when Obi-Wan lands and starts talking to Anakin. and that's
Oh,
Act
so
4.
basically, it's like You're saying Act 3 is
Act
kind
3
of
is
divided
Vader.
into
Act 3 is Return to
Jedi
Vader.
versus.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
how I interpret it.
I just wanted to hear your interpretation of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mustafar.
Yeah, Mustafar. This fight is insane and is stupid.
What?
What a bizarre. Are you serious? You like it?
I loved it.
Oh
Yes.
my god.
Are
They're
you kidding
doing
me?
gymnastics and swinging light.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're trying to throw each other off. They know each other's moves. They know how to potentially counter them. So when they're like spinning around, they're going
so
for
stupid.
the who's going to. It's the classic who makes the first move, because that's going to be the person that loses. But you got to keep the. I mean, I will say that you got to keep the flow of combat for the sake of the movie to keep it going. But it's a constant game of who's going to make the first move, who's going to counter that move, and how are they going to throw each other off because of the fact that Obi-Wan did teach Anakin. And throughout the entire fight, you see this style differences between them of how Obi-Wan is more of the defensive fighter, and strategic fighter, as opposed to Anakin, who goes for more of just the more brute force in a lot of the things. And I liked it. I like spinning lightsabers, okay? I thought it looked cool.
So there's a moment in the opening of that fight. I was honestly trying to like find it on my phone, where they're spinning, nobody's hitting anything. There's
That's what I'm saying, though.
It's
That's
like
what I'm
the
saying.
that is like one of the, because then they start clashing and they're like hitting blow for blow, and that's kind of cool. But there's a moment where they just spin. Not one connect. There's not one kinetic moment at all. And then they keep fighting.
You got to find that opening. We saw it earlier with Grievous and Obi-Wan. Grievous is just spinning his lightsabers completely recklessly with just a simple order.
Towards Obi-Wan.
He is walking towards him, but Obi-Wan is standing there waiting for the opening. This is against a person basically mirroring that same thing.
I think so. I think this is another one of these things that works in theory but not in execution, where the spinning, because I was thinking about, because it's the one that's clowned on the most, is when they're both standing right in front of each other and they spin their lightsabers and nobody's hitting anyone. And I think
awesome. I'm glad people clowned on that. I watched it for the first time last night. And I was like, this is amazing.
Visually, it looks ridiculous. Like, you can't argue that. And I think I think what they were trying to do is like, that's like, you know, you're moving your weapon so fast that nobody knows where it's going, but like visually it looks silly, and like there are ways that you can communicate that better. And I think where this fight loses me is where they could have done all of the things you were saying, Dan, where it's like showing these two spar in interesting ways, like they do. Sorry, Hassan, spoilers, like they do in Obi-Wan at a certain point.
Oh my gosh, they spar on Obi-Wan. There's not images all over TikTok that are
Okay.
why are Hayden Christensen so old now? Why did they DH Hayden,
time
Hayden Christensen?
passed.
A guy on YouTube made it better than Star Wars, and then they showed like a de-aged AI version, which looked fine, but it's like,
Yeah.
gives a shit.
That show
Star
doesn't
Wars
have any
fans.
budget. That's why. But I think there are ways that you can show it better, and I don't think you need ballerina, like gymnastic jumping off of lava machinery to show that. That's where this fight loses. I lose like interest in this fight for me, because like you contrast this bombastic, like weird hanging off of chains doing flips fight to the fight that Vader and Luke have in Empire, where Vader is just holding like he's basically fencing Luke, and Luke is like tired and he's like trying to wail on Vader, and Vader's just like deflecting him, and it's like locked off, and there's so much emotion and like communication in there. It's like this fight, they're not really communicating anything, they're just fighting because they have to. Like it doesn't look like Anakin wants to kill Obi-Wan here, so he should be wailing on him, but it looks like they're just doing a performance, and that's where it loses it for me.
The weight. That's what's so important, is that lightsabers are probably mostly CGI. I know in these movies they did have like a physical stick, so they could
They've always had a
connect little
stick
bit
of some kind.
Yeah.
Now they're doing
Ewan
LED
McGregor was
stick.
recently talking about how much he misses the old ones, because they felt they had like a really nice weight to it. But it feels wrong that they're not physically moving each other with the force of their attacks, rather than just the blades clashing. But like, I hit you and you back up a little bit, and then I hit you again and you back, like you know what I mean? Like really like feet digging in the ground, kind of trying to stand your ground. Yeah, like a real
Back
fight.
and forth.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, based on like kind of what we're saying of all of this, is I feel like I feel like a big problem just generally that this movie had was there was clearly some kind of disconnects between the directing and the acting, as well as a goal of what they wanted and trying to force situations that did not translate in the way that they wanted to in the actual way, because of the fact that like you can't always get someone that sees the vision in the same way that you do, and they kind of do their own interpretation. And I feel like that goes in both the fight as well as like the acting itself. Like there is clearly parts where you're like, there's something up between the acting and the directing in this scene, because it does just feel off.
I think really the big thing is again, this is a problem with all these prequels, and this one's the worst for it. I think is nobody wanted to put George Lucas in check. He wrote and directed all three of these. There was another writer on Attack of the Clones, but he wrote and directed these three movies. Nobody wanted to tell him no. So like when I don't think George Lucas knows how to direct actors. I think I think he's maybe a little bit good at adapting classic stories. I think he's better as a writer than he is as a director. And that's saying a lot, because I haven't seen anything that I've enjoyed from him since the original trilogy. But, he's got interesting ideas, and he can write them on paper in a way that's good if he has people that's working with him. But, like, when it's all him, you're not going to be one dude who's got strengths in every department. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a much larger hand in choreographing that fight than he should have.
Yeah. I could see that.
And that's like a big, especially when it's like, when like the Yoda Dooku fight in the last episode, or probably the Yoda Sidious fight in this one, is just like, have the character who's real, have the human like do stuff, and then we'll just animate Yoda later. Like, that's like a lack of care, that it's just like, maybe he was just like, build a Mustafar set in CG and then just put Anakin and Obi-Wan in crazy parts of it, and we'll figure it out later.
One thing we didn't mention that because you mentioned the Yoda versus Dooku, and how when we reviewed that, we were talking about all the flips that Yoda did, and we completely brushed over the fact that when Sidious is fighting against Mace Windu, he's doing a bunch of flips as well, and he's just doing like these super fast flips and stuff.
He looks so funny.
But
it was spin move entry. His spin move entry into the fight.
It's so ridiculous.
He fucking... Why, man? It's like even spinning like that, you could like maybe stick the lightsaber out, so it's like the lightsaber rolling around you. He held it straight and then spinned. What is he doing? Oh God, I hate that.
Style points.
But I feel like in the story wise of a lot of these movies, and this conversation as well as all the expanded stuff kind of speaks to, is a little too much is left open to interpretation. That's because fair. Like there are like different ways that we're all looking at these different scenes, and like in the different points of view, because like I'm completely seeing your guys' point of view on some of these things, because I'm like, I didn't look at it that way, but I can see where you're coming from, but it doesn't match up with what I was thinking because I'm looking at it a different way. And so I feel like that's something that kind of hurt them. And I feel like, Dylan, you're completely right. I feel like the original trilogy, George Lucas did better because he just kind of let the actors act. And you can kind of tell in this that there was more him putting his hand in of, wait, that's not how I wanted to see this done. You're going to have to do it like this. And you can kind of see that awkwardness of people going, okay, well, they wanted it like this. Is this what they mean? Like, is this kind of what he's talking about?
It's very awkward. And it's very, like, these movies, that's the thing about these movies, is they're so not nuanced and they're so not well thought out that's why they're so polarizing, is like people love them, people hate them, because there's nothing specific. Like, these movies have nothing to say. Like, the original trilogy had something to say, and these movies are just kind of like trying to do the same thing, but also adding a ton of nonsense on top of it. Like, I would say Phantom Menace has the most to say about any of these movies, and it's really boring because of it. Just doesn't fit well. But Yeah, I don't know. I think we've been going for almost an hour here.
Yeah.
So
I just noticed that as well.
I think we should wrap up. Let's go, Dan. What are your final thoughts on Revenge of the Sith?
Final thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I think because I like fight scenes more, I enjoyed it a little more than you guys.
Fair enough.
Because the deep stuff does not matter as much to me. I like interpreting in my way, but I can see your guys' thoughts of they didn't really explain that. But overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the prequels. This one definitely was the better of the three.
Man. So I liked it better than the other movies. And as a movie, I don't like it. As a Star Wars prequel, I like it the best. I think that there's plenty. These movies and they have such great concepts and such poor execution. And that's not on the actors' fault. I really think it lies in the directing and the decision making. I think a lot of those are really, really questionable. But the actors all really grew into their roles. I think, Padme had less to do in the last movie than she did beforehand. But Natalie Portman's incredible as always. Hayden Christensen, I'm glad he's getting a second shot because he is kind of great in some parts of this movie. I think a lot of times he is saying like insane person stuff that no human would ever say. But he was given that to say. Ewan McGregor, fantastic as always, and it's been really fun. I'm glad I got to watch these things. Going from here straight into Obi-Wan has been a treat.
Yeah, for me at the end of the day, this is like I think both of you mentioned, this is the most watchable of these three movies. This was the only one I was like even a little bit excited to watch just because I know that there's stuff in here that I like just goofy like nonsense. That's fun to see on camera. I will often quote just to myself the back and forth between Obi-Wan and Anakin where he says, "I have the high ground. It's over it. Don't try it. You underestimate my power." Like that's just one of my favorite lines in anything. Cuz it's so silly. And this movie is silly and all of these movies are silly. But hey, I've had a lot of fun reviewing these with you boys. So yeah, let us know in the comments what you want us to look at next. I think I'm going to need a little bit of a breather before we do sequels, if we ever do sequels.
I'm in the same boat of that one.
But we could also
And
do
for the people
original
saying we
trilogy.
should review every episode of Clone Wars,
We're not doing that.
No,
we're not going to do that.
that's not happening.
Absolutely none of us have the time
Yeah,
to do that.
that's like 200 episodes of television. So like a great idea, but we don't have time.
Not.
But
nope.
thank you for the suggestion. So yeah, let us know in the comments what you guys want to see next from this little trio or anyone else involved. Yeah, that's it. This has been Absolutely. I'm Dylan. That's Hus, and that's Dan. Catch y'all next time on something else.